Bishop. Bishop comes from a terrible 22nd century that became a pretty horrible dystopia after an event called the Summer's Rebellion. Bishop wants nothing more than to prevent this future from happening, and that is basically his entire personality. To prevent his future apocalyptic future, he travels back to the present day to find the X-Men and to become Professor Xavier's bodyguard. Eventually, Bishop seems to think that his future is created thanks to the birth of Hope Summers, which leads to him becoming a bit of a villain, but also leads to a conflict with someone we will talk about in just one sec. Now, his time jumping abilities are granted by a cybernetic arm that he possesses, but his actual mutant ability is to absorb and redirect any kinetic energy that is used against him or that is released in his general vicinity. He's easily a favorite X-Men for a lot of people, even if he lets his knowledge of a possible future guide his actions into some unfavorable places sometimes. Number 9. Cable. Cable, or Nathan Summers, is the offspring of Scott Summers and Madeline Pryor, which should make you think that this guy isn't from the future at all. You see, Mr. Sinister had planned the birth of Nathan, hoping that he could use Nathan against the mutant known as Apocalypse, but that didn't work out. Instead, Apocalypse infected Nathan with a techno-organic virus. Because of this, and because his parents feared Apocalypse would hunt Nathan down, they sent their child to the future. It is true that adult Cable and Apocalypse do have a lot going on, as Cable does return fully grown to the modern day to stop Apocalypse, but also to face an evil version of himself. It's a lot, but that's time travel. Cable has not just one, but two modes of time travel. He can use a special future gadget to transport himself as well as his allies to a different point in time, but Cable can also use his telepathic abilities to send his astral form back in time as well, although he's only ever done that once. If you think about it, I'm technically talking to you from the past, since this is being filmed like 3 days before it goes up, or maybe it's months since I filmed it, maybe even years. You should like this video or comment and send a message to past me so that me, of your present, aka my future, can see it and appreciate it.
Number 8. Age of Apocalypse. What would the world be like if Apocalypse succeeded in conquering it? Well, as you may have expected, it would not be great. While Apocalypse, currently in the comics, is not seeking to dominate and rule the world, but is actually focusing on his family, currently kind of in retirement, we should maybe just be grateful for that. Even though, honestly, right now, I think the mutants could actually use his help. Back in the days when Apocalypse was known as one of the most terrifying mutant villains around, we got to explore and imagine a world known as Age of Apocalypse. This alternate Earth, known as Earth 295, is one where Professor Charles Xavier was accidentally killed by his own time-traveling son, Legion, which resulted in a divergence from the main timeline. Because Charles wasn't around to form his own X-Men team when Apocalypse came, the world fell. Here, Magneto instead leads his own mutant team, acting as one of the last to stand against Apocalypse. But unfortunately, it's not enough to save this reality from being a horrifying terror show, where many of our favorite heroes end up pulled over to Apocalypse's side of the conflict.
Number 7. Booster Gold. Booster used to be a star college football player in the future who was caught betting on his own games and was expelled. So, luckily, this isn't a list of morally upstanding heroes. Booster got a job at a space and superhero museum, and in keeping with his interesting choice of morals, he found and stole Rip Hunter's time sphere, along with a bunch of other superhero gadgets. Using his future son's time sphere, he went back in time with the museum's robot named Skeets. Now, thanks to his knowledge of future crimes that would come to pass, he could easily go and stop them, and he did this becoming a hero, earning himself both profit and fame. Thankfully though, he did actually find some humility and eventually became a real hero, traveling throughout time, fixing the cracks in history and fighting evil time-traveling threats with no praise or applause except for, of course, us readers. Number 6. Iron Lad. Though this character's armor is quite similar to Tony Stark's and shares many of his Iron Man suit's features, hence the Iron Lad name, this is actually the younger version of the one known as Nathaniel Richards, aka Kang the Conqueror, or aka his other like 30 names. In the year 3016, Nathaniel Richards gets rescued by his future evil self before a lethal attack by bullies. Nathan is given new armor and trained by the villain to make himself even better, if that makes sense. Time travel. But this inadvertently made the young Nathaniel turn against his future older self, and he uses the armor to travel to the modern day Earth 616. 6. From there, Iron Lad's armor allows him to create temporal divergences, which let him manipulate time and travel through it. Now, going back in time, he eventually became the leader of the Young Avengers in order to balance the scales for things that he would do later in life. But because time is complex sometimes, he inevitably goes on to actually eventually still become Kang the Conqueror and do all the horrible things that Kang the Conqueror does. Even knowing your future doesn't stop you from being able to change it, apparently. I guess. Number 5. Bart Allen. Bart Allen was born in the late 30th century, which is around the same time of the Legion of Superheroes. He is the grandson of Barry Allen, which meant that Bart was born with his grandfather's super speed instead of having to receive it in an accident. Unfortunately though, Bart also suffered from a super hyper-accelerated metabolism, which means he was aging at an insane rate. Like when he was 2 years old, he looked 12. To stop Bart from developing mental problems, Bart was placed in a virtual reality that kept pace with his aging. Now it turns out that doesn't really solve the problem at all. Instead, his grandmother, Iris Allen, decided to take Bart into the past to find Wally West, the third and arguably most powerful Flash. Now Wally pushed Bart to use his super speed at extreme new levels, which shocked Bart's metabolism back to regular speedster levels. Because of his time in the virtual reality though, Bart had no concept of danger, so he just kept acting before actually thinking. Batman, having the best sense of humor, decided to give Bart the nickname Impulse. Number 4. Rip Hunter. Rip Hunter is actually the future son of Booster Gold, who we talked about earlier, which raises a lot of questions. But he is also the DC Universe's leading authority in time travel. If you'll recall, Booster is from the future and used Rip's own technology to travel back in time in the first place. But this was before Rip was ever actually born in Booster's timeline, and now you understand why time travel is incredibly confusing. Other than being Booster's son from the future, Rip Hunter's origins and true identity are actually a total mystery. But this is on purpose, as keeping his origins and identity a mystery safeguards this time-traveling hero from time-traveling villains that would try to erase him from existence. And that's because Rip Hunter defends the time stream as a time master. Very cool. In his earliest appearances, his portrayal was more in line with the serial type of adventure he was involved in, so more adventure-based stories than a true superhero, until the 1980s when he became much more focused on the future implications of present events, which led to a worldwide apocalyptic event, and it was his obsessive goal to try and stop it. Now more recently though, his origins seem to suggest that he is from the 25th century, and now he's more of a protective overseer. But in all his iterations, he's cool as hell, and how could he not be with a name like Rip Hunter? Super cool.
Number 3. Earth Z. Sometimes referred to as Earth Z, Earth 2149 is the reality where a zombified sentry first caused an outbreak to happen. The outbreak would not only threaten the general public of this whole universe, but also go on to infect many superpowered beings as well, both heroes and villains, and it would also kind of spill into other universes too. It's widely considered to be one of the darkest realities in all of comics. This is a reality where Black Panther, T'Challa, is slowly devoured by his former colleagues and friends. Freaks me out every time. Every time I think about it, I'm like, no! Where Spider-Man ends up eating both his dear Aunt May and beloved MJ. It's a really messed up and bleak reality basically, and every time I go back to it, I'm almost immediately forced to recoil back from these issues and this world. That's just how gruesome it is. It's really intense.
Number 2. Wave Rider. The original Wave Rider would be Matthew Ryder from the year 2030. Now in this future world, the world has been ruled for 20 years by an armored despot known as Monarch, who has destroyed all of Earth's superheroes. Ryder was rescued from a collapsing building as a child by an unknown superhero, which inspired him to fight back as an adult. Knowing that Monarch had once been a hero before some unknown event turned him to evil, Ryder volunteers as a time travel test subject in hopes of traveling to the past and preventing Monarch from ever coming to exist in the first place. But where other similar experiments failed, his succeeded. Matthew entered the time stream and became Wave Rider, able to move back and forth through time as well as see people's most likely futures by touching them, which is super cool. And finally, in at number 1, it's Kiyoshi Morales. When a group of 5 Captain Americas from different realities are brought together in Captain America Corps number 1 from 2011, we get a look at Kiyoshi Morales, the great-grandnephew of Luke Cage and the 25th century's Commander A, which I'm sure the A stands for America. Kiyoshi is a much more physically imposing character, standing at what looks like almost 7 feet tall, and he was definitely the most physically imposing Captain America among the Captain Americas gathered. Instead of using a vibranium shield, Kiyoshi's suit can generate energy shields on each arm, which resemble the normal Captain America vibranium shield, kind of like Captain America 3099. Now his suit is much more advanced as well, as you'd expect from the 25th century Captain America stand-in. For example, it features a neuroweb, which allows him to tap into wireless systems and store information. He had all the enhancements we'd expect from a Captain America, and he is just a super cool character who I really hope we get to see more of in the future, but for now, he is definitely my favorite of the members of the Captain America Corps.
Number 10. Future State. In the Future State reality, we saw the DC universe get pretty bleak. This was a world where Bruce Wayne's Batman was initially presumed dead, while Gotham had become a police state city, where all masks, heroes, and villains were outlawed, where the Justice League was only really a team of co-workers, no longer a group of close friends, never mind a family, where the Flash family was shattered, and where the Teen Titans Academy was destroyed, and the world became an apocalyptic wasteland thanks to the threat of the Four Horsemen. In all its bleakness, there were some bright moments and spots, but it seemed the farther into this future that we went, the darker things got. What makes a future scary? What superheroes do you think have the worst luck with awful and terrifying futures? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Number 9. Last Night on Earth. Last Night on Earth is a bizarre and wonderful story that features a post-apocalyptic wasteland where Batman, or a clone version of Bruce Wayne, wanders Gotham, laid to waste by nuclear warfare thanks to a mysterious villain known only as Omega. This version of Batman is also joined on his journey by none other than his longtime nemesis, the Joker, who is reduced to being a head in a jar, having previously been dismembered by Alfred himself. Joker and Batman go on all sorts of weird adventures, including one where they fight against giant-sized babies, which were actually light constructs created by those who now had taken and wielded the Green Lantern's rings, but who obviously, weren't really chosen to do so. I mean, I feel like if you're making giant babies to fight someone, it probably shouldn't have been a Green Lantern. In my mind. I mean, I guess it's creative. Gotta give them that. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, please check out our newest channel, Most Amazing Top 10 Anime.
Number 8. Spider-Man 2099. Instead of getting bitten by a radioactive super spider, Miguel O'Hara's DNA was biologically mixed with the spider's DNA to save his life after he was forcibly hooked on a not far off future substance by his employer. If that sounds convoluted, well, yeah, it is, but it also sounds right at home in a comic book. Although the process of gaining his powers differed from Peter Parker, Miguel O'Hara was still granted many of the same abilities at a pretty similar level as Spider-Man. One thing that differs largely from Spider-Man is Miguel's spider sense, because he doesn't have one. Instead, Miguel has advanced super senses like Daredevil. Miguel also has some abilities that are just wholly unique to him, like super speed or telepathic communication abilities, which are both really cool. He also has fangs and claws that are not so cool, they're more like freaky, but they're cool for combat, I guess. On top of all those powers though, Miguel is from the year 2099, which means that he naturally has a much more advanced set of technology at his disposal when he finally comes together with the Spider-Verse.
Number 7. Earth 3. Earth 3 is the reality that belongs to the Reverse Justice League. Not the Bizarro version, but the Crime Syndicate. They are basically an evil version of the Justice League we know and love from the main continuity. But instead of being a one-for-one of every character on the team, each member actually has their own more evil counterpart. Not necessarily being an alternate version of them, but in some cases they are. Wonder Woman is replaced by Lois Lane as a manipulative and evil superwoman. Batman is replaced by his older alternate sibling, Thomas Jr., who killed both his parents and the younger Bruce, as Owlman. And Kal-El, I think we still say it Kal-El, is the last vengeful son of Krypton known as Ultraman, but his Kal-El is spelt with just 2 L's instead of E-L. And that's only some of the impressively villainous roster who basically all rule Earth, using fear to motivate the people to do as they say. At least in the original Crime Syndicate. It's different people now. Not all of them are still there. Times change, and when you're evil, People are gonna usurp you and you'll probably end up dying at some point. That's just how it goes. Number 6. Days of Future Past. Days of Future Past is a mutant-based horror future where all mutants basically end up persecuted and held in camps where they're marked with M tattoos and forced to live out their days. This was a future reality that was avoided in terms of it becoming the main reality future when Rachel Summers in the comics sends Wolverine back in time to stop it from happening. Rachel herself happens to be from a version of the Days of Future Past reality, the main one known as Earth 811, of which now there are actually more than one version of that even alternate reality, just to really confuse you. An alternate version of the Days of Future Past reality, known as Earth 1191, is also the one that Lucas Bishop hails from, where Layla Miller also gets captured and marked with her own M tattoo, which she still has over her eye to this day, from her journey there with Jamie Madrox during the X-Men Second Coming crossover event. Number 5. Ultron 1. What if Ultron 1 is an episode in the animated What If series, where we got to reimagine what the world could have been like in the cinematic universe if Ultron had actually won his fight against the Avengers, merging with the body that would become Vision and pretty much decimating all life on Earth and beyond. Only a few survivors remain, and even they struggle to survive and save the day. The other question becomes, who exactly are they even saving the day for? Most of humanity at this point is pretty much gone. It's an awful future where even the Guardians of the Multiverse, later assembled, even struggle to actually straight up defeat Ultron, instead having to be satisfied with merely containing him. Which, I mean, good enough for now, but who knows, that Ultron could just be like busting out and come in and be like, hey, I'm back. I feel like that's gonna happen at some point. And if it doesn't, I'll be a little disappointed, to be honest. Number 4. Deceased. Deceased is DC's apocalyptic zombie-like world, but where instead of it being specifically a zombie outbreak, it's more of an outbreak of the anti-life equation. The anti-life equation affects all the heroes and villains it infects by causing them to basically lose control and be filled with rage. This is the reality where an anti-life infected Wonder Woman goes on a rampage and literally tears Vandal Savage in half. This is also the same reality where the tragic story of Batman and Alfred is actually reversed compared to the main continuity. Instead of Bruce outliving his father figure and his trusted butler Alfred, Alfred is actually the one who survives him. Also, Alfred is a badass in this reality. Alfred is a badass in all realities though, so facts.
Number 3. 5. Number 5 was one of the 43 children born at once, and one of the 7 children adopted by Sir Reginald Hargreaves in Dark Horse Comics' Umbrella Academy. 5 has the natural born ability to travel through time. While he isn't technically from the future, at the age of 10, 5 traveled 20 years into the future and found himself in an apocalyptic wasteland, forcing him to spend decades trying to travel back to his native 1960s. The failure of this slowly drove him completely insane. When he finally did travel back in time, he was captured and modified by the surgeons of the Temps Eternalis, who mixed strands of DNA from a bunch of killers with 5's own DNA, which somehow made him the perfect killer, quote unquote. They also helped refine his powers though, teaching him how to perform micro jumps in time, making him incredibly fast. When he rebelled against the Temps and finally returned to the past, 5 days before the apocalypse, 5 regressed back from an old man to an unaging 10-year-old in transit. And that's why he remains the only childlike member of the Umbrella Academy when he is technically a fully grown man in a child's body. Freaky.
Number 2. Ruins. Oof. I cannot believe this one is not at the top of this list. Honestly though, it was a hard decision to make when it came down to these last few. Some might not think of Marvel's Ruins as a future as it is set in modern day sort of, but it's still an alternate reality that never came to pass in the main continuity based on the original world of Marvel, which actually, you know, started technically back in the 60s, although that's kind of weird. So I think we can still consider Ruins like taking a glimpse through a dark crystal ball into an impossibly cruel potential future for our heroes and our villains. In this reality, superpowers are interpreted more literally, meaning that they are less blessings than curses that cause people great harm, with them becoming more monsters, prisoners, victims, or just like straight up villains than actual altruistic heroes most days. Number 1. Batman in Bethlehem. Batman in Bethlehem has to be one of the worst futures out there, but that is also part of what makes it so compelling and so interesting. In this reality, Damian Wayne takes up the cape and cowl, following in his father's footsteps. But after the death of Nightwing, who actually went on to become Batman before Damian did. Damian decides the best way to approach being Batman because of Nightwing's death is by doing things kind of his own way. In other words, he no longer holds himself back from killing. And more than that, in this reality, Damian also makes a deal with the devil to basically protect Gotham no matter what, offering his soul in exchange for immortality and superior healing powers, which allows him to act as Gotham's vengeance pretty much forever. Or at least for as long as, Gotham lasts. Eventually, Gotham ends up confronting a zombie-like outbreak when most of its citizens become infected with Joker venom and the monster serum. Gotham would then end up quarantined before being nuked, wiping it off the face of the map, with Damian surviving the strike due to his immortality and healing factor that he had bargained for.
Number 10. Contest of Champions. Venom is the antithesis to Peter Parker when you think about it. I read somewhere, I can't remember where, that Venom is essentially what happens when someone acquires great power without possessing the great responsibility to keep it in check. And I like that. The two have an epic rivalry, but in Contest of Champions, yes, the Marvel fighting game, fans were introduced to a Venom from an alternate Earth that had managed to finally take down his first host and #1 enemy, Spider-Man. He went a little crazy off the victory over his longtime adversary and took the Spider-Man suit from Spider-Man's body and started to wear it around his neck as a tiny little cape. It's almost kinda cute, if not a little horrifying. He is a Venom that ultimately completed his #1 goal. He's living life as a fully realized Venom, just thriving. You go, Venom. You go. Number 9. Mech Venom. I'm not entirely sure that this is a future world, but the technology would suggest so. In an alternate reality Earth, 14512, a reality of giant robots and giant morbid monsters, the armored hero SP-4-4-DR, or Penny Parker, fights for peace and justice. Seeking to replicate the success of the SP-4-4-DR mech, the Venom, which is spelled VEN #M suit, is created. That's really confusing. Oh well. Combining a biomechanical sim engine with bleeding edge robotics. Get it? Sim engine? Like symbiote? Nice. Wordplay. Ultimately, during a crisis with the Morbius kaiju, the suit goes rogue, very rogue, and assimilates its pilot, young Addie Brock, plus Penny's Aunt May. The suit becomes a frightening, downright unstoppable threat to the world. Venom is a threat all on its own before it becomes a giant mech suit, so this is pretty bad. Number 8. More robots. Speaking of giant robotic mechs, in Megamorphs, Marvel's seriously obvious attempt to sell some toys, Iron Man recruited heroes such as Spider-Man, the Hulk, and Ghost Rider to aid him in battling the forces of evil using giant, eerily Transformer-like robots. Each of these giant robots, that also kind of remind me of Power Rangers, is unique to and powered by each hero. Unfortunately, villains got their hands on the tech as well that created the mechs, and a few have their own. Bet you can't guess who has one. Yes, obviously it's Venom. God, read the title? Dr. Doom recruits a team of villains to jump into their own giant robots to fight the do-gooders. And Venom pilots the Spider Smasher, a massive robot similar in style and color scheme to Venom with cool Venom-based abilities. It can also transform to be more spider-like as well. When it first shows up, it does battle with the Thing, almost losing before it makes its escape. Number 7. Old Man Hawkeye / Logan. Old Man Logan is an insanely graphic and fresh take on the Marvel Universe. It's set in a post-apocalyptic America where the villains of the Marvel Universe coordinated a simultaneous attack on the heroes, orchestrated by none other than the Red Skull. There's a gang of Jewish Hulks, a giant skeleton of Loki crushed by the Baxter Building, old versions of superheroes and supervillains, and a Venom symbiote bonded with a T-Rex from the Savage Land. Even though this Venom only showed up for a little brief moment in the Old Man Logan storyline, Venom Rex instantly became a fan favorite character, which meant we got to see how this came to be in the follow-up, or I guess the prequel, Old Man Hawkeye. In this story, we see a Venom who bonds to the Madrox gang, who have kind of separated from James Madrox, sort of, but not really. Doesn't really matter. But after Venom bonded to the Madrox, they now use their power to duplicate themselves into an army of Venoms bound to track down Hawkeye, who had stuck the other Madrox members with plenty of arrows. An army of Venoms chasing you across the country would be pretty terrifying. After hunting down Clint to Kate Bishop's sanctuary, the two heroes led the Venom army into the wilds where it reduced its number, but then a random T-Rex from the Savage Land attacked the symbiote? I don't know. If you read Old Man Logan, you know that this is the exact same Tyrannosaurus that attacks Logan and Clint. And now, we've come full circle. Number 6. More of the same? And we return to Wolverine Old Man Logan, the same series as the previously mentioned T-Rex, except 15 years later and in the Edge of Venomverse 4, where things are now decidedly worse for the feral hero. The baby Hulk Logan took from the Hulk gang, Banner Jr., grew up a bit, and after Logan told him what happened to his family, the little Hulk beat the snot out of Logan. After Archangel, Banner Jr., and Ashley Barton capture Logan in the danger room of the X-Men mansion, they unveil that dang venomized T-Rex yet again is alive. Logan is able to defeat Ashley, but when he attempts to take on the Venomsaurus Rex, that's what I'm going to call it, he instead finds himself leaping down its throat. Banner Jr. is mid-celebration when suddenly the symbiote changes sides, de-bonds from the T-Rex, and takes over Logan. Logan escapes the beast as his Venom self and goes after his 2 captures. He defeats Archangel, and then just as he's about to finish off Banner Jr., he claims he can't, and that he kept the truth of his family from him because he loves him like a son, all while a portal randomly appears, bringing this Venom Wolverine face to face with the Venom Captain America of the Resistance in the Edge of Venomverse story arc. Number 5, 2099. The Earth of Spider-Man 2099 is pretty awesome. Cyberpunk themes, President Doom, Miguel O'Hara as Spider-Man with the awesome suit. It shouldn't be any surprise that the Venom of 2099 is just as awesome and kind of scary, so long that it has evolved to have new abilities like acid blood and spit. This version of the symbiote bonded itself to Kron Stone, the son of Tyler Stone and the elder half-brother of Miguel O'Hara, bringing Venom and the Spider-Man even closer than their modern day equivalents. The symbiote first appears when it tries to kill Tyler in the hospital, and that is when Spider-Man intervenes. The fight goes on for a long time, like several issues long, with Venom even taking Spider-Man's former lovers. After Miguel learnt of Venom's weakness to sound, sonic sounds were emitted all over the city, stunning Venom, allowing Spider-Man to beat him, revealing Crom's identity. Later, the symbiote would merge with Roman the Submariner and flee to the ocean. Wow. Number 4, Aaliyah Bell. Kron Stone isn't the only person to bond to the Venom symbiote in the world of 2099. Aaliyah Bell had an injury on her left arm that she got in a terrible accident as a child. Now, as a teenager, the corporation Alchemax had Aaliyah undergo an experimental treatment that would fix her disfigurement. Only, what she didn't know is that Alchemax had actually bonded her with a piece of the Venom symbiote and had intended to make her a super soldier. Just like the Venom everyone loves, Aaliyah pleaded with the symbiote to become a hero with their abilities instead of being a monster and eating people. Venom agreed, but the pair start receiving dark visions of the symbiote god Null still being alive on Earth. Number 3, Venom as an acronym. Earth 138 is one of many realities that is shown to us in the Spider-Verse event. The President of the United States in this reality is Norman Osborn, who is also still the CEO of Oscorp. And what do you know? Oscorp in this reality also created Venom, as in V-E-N-O-M, like an acronym, which stands for Variable Engagement Neurosensitive Organic Mesh. So it's a bioweapon, one that President Osborn gives to his lackeys. Even he himself dons the Dark Creation, so we have an army of Venom-powered soldiers led by a Venom-powered President Norman Osborn. But who opposes this government Venom villain army? Well, this is the story where we get Spider-Punk and all his followers. Fighting for their beliefs, the Spider Army is a group of punks ready to stand their ground, and Spider-Man is their punk rock leader. Unfortunately for Osborn, their Venom is just as weak to sound as the Venom we all know and love, and we are shown this when Spider-Punk plays his electric guitar at full volume, completely blasting away the symbiotes as the two groups clash. Heck yeah. Number 2, Earth X. Earth 999, a world where basically every single person has powers. Things have gone apocalyptic, and the daughter of Peter Parker, May Parker, is in possession of the Venom symbiote. While her retired and cynical pops ain't too thrilled about it, she does actually have complete control over the symbiote thanks to her advanced and honed spider sense. She was eventually under the control of this kid going by the name of Red Skull, and thanks to her father and other Earth X classic heroes, she was saved. Venom and her father, Spider-Man, go on to join the superpowered police force and fight crime and supervillain threats together. She eventually, after the death of Death, goes on to be recruited by Kang the Conqueror as part of a multiversal team to fight the Apocalypse Twins. In addition to her proportional spider powers plus the enhanced spider sense, she gains all the usual symbiote powers plus a few extra, like what seems to be a rudimentary form of telepathy. And 'tis believed her symbiote could go on to mutate further to gain more powers, which is a good way for Marvel to say, we can do whatever we want with this. She's definitely one of the cooler incarnations of Venom. Number 1. Reign. 35 years have passed. Spider-Man is an old, retired man. Mary Jane Watson has passed away. New York is under the control of dictator Mayor Waters and his police force called Reign. But unbeknownst to most, it was actually Venom who had been pulling the strings, taking the position of aide to the mayor in the body of the cowardly Edward Sachs. This version of Venom is much more brooding, maniacal, and downright dastardly than his mainline counterpart, plotting and scheming for years for the eventual return of his rival Spider-Man. Venom is a bitter, old symbiote ever since Spider-Man retired, feeling abandoned by the hero, and he cannot wait to get his hands back on him. He has replicated himself thousands of times, put together the Sinister Six, and has trapped the citizens of New York in the city with his security system known as Web, all for the eventual return of his nemesis. All that, and he is still defeated at the end of the comic. Or is he? Number 10, 3099. Although this version of Captain America is not native to any comic books, being from the Marvel Future Fight game, he is still probably one of the sweetest looking Captain Americas we have ever seen, and he is from the future, so a win-win. This Cap is James Rogers, presumably an ancestor of Steve Rogers, and he wields a shield that seems to be made of pure energy that can do multiple different things. By watching some of his moves from the game, James can do all the normal Captain America things, but his shield can create a force field bubble around James. It is also able to duplicate itself and become multiple shields at once to attack multiple enemies and give James protection while other shields are bouncing around doing crazy stuff. The story reason for his existence is that in a fight between an Ultron under the control of Red Skull and modern day Captain America, Iron Man, and Black Widow, a portal to an alternate future dimension opens up, and the alternate 39 future versions of those three heroes come through and they fight against their originals. I don't really care what the excuse is for having them. All the versions of these 3099 heroes are totally awesome, even if only in their designs. Number 9, Sharon Rogers. Oh look, it's another Marvel Future Fight version of Cap. I'm sorry, I promise this is the last one, I promise. In an alternate universe where Captain America was never frozen in ice at the end of World War II, Steve Rogers and Peggy Carter celebrated V-Day with a private marriage ceremony and some alone time. After the couple's honeymoon, when Peggy was assigned to South Korea, the couple welcomed the birth of their daughter Sharon. Following in her heroic parents' footsteps, Sharon soon became an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. herself and eventually took over the role of Captain America. Tony Stark presented her with awesome-looking heavy-duty but lightweight Starlight armor, alongside a new energy-absorbing shield and a new weapon, the Blaster Lance. She looks wild and totally awesome, and I'm assuming, based on her in-game stats, that she's on par with her father ability-wise, but with the obvious technological enhancements. Number 8, Kiyoshi Morales. When a group of 5 Captain Americas from different realities are brought together in Captain America Corps number 1 from 2011, we get a look at Kiyoshi Morales, the great-grandnephew of Luke Cage, and he is the 25th century's Commander A. Kiyoshi is a much more physically imposing character, standing at what looks like almost 7 feet tall, and he was definitely the most physically imposing Captain America among the Captain Americas gathered by Toph Key. Instead of a vibranium shield, Kiyoshi's suit can generate energy shields on each arm, which resemble the normal Captain America vibranium shield, kind of like Captain America 3099 from number 10. His suit is much more advanced as well, as you'd expect from the 25th century Captain America. For example, it features a neuro web, which allows him to tap into wireless systems and stored information. He had all the enhancements we'd expect from a Captain America, and he is just a super cool character who I really hope we get to see more of in the future. But for now, he's definitely my favorite of the Captain America Corps members. Number 7, Shannon Carter. Spider-Girl, May Parker's timeline, otherwise known as Earth 982, presented a brighter future for Marvel than the world of 2099 suggested. In the MC2, Sharon Sharon Carter's cousin, Shannon Carter, idolized Captain America as she grew up. Now as an adult, Shannon worked as a tour guide for the Avengers Mansion, but eventually she pushed herself to her physical limit, created miniature Captain America shield weapons, and she was invited to join the next generation of Avengers. Shannon took on the American Dream persona in tribute to Cap, but when she finally met and saved her idol, Steve was so impressed that he gave Shannon an indestructible shield too. So while she did have a different name, she was ultimately another version of Captain America, and an alternate future version too. She also kicked butt, so there's that. Number 6. Danielle Cage. On Earth 15061, Danielle Cage, the daughter of both Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, would eventually grow up to become the Captain America of her time. And let's think about this. The subsonic flight and superhuman longevity of her mother, with the bulletproof skin of her father, plus the superhuman strength, durability, stamina, speed, and healing factors of both of them? Yes, Danielle Cage doesn't just use the shield of Captain America, she is the shield, and she is an awesome Captain America. She arguably does not even need her shield, which is a controllable drone replica of the original. Unfortunately, we don't really get to see much of this version of Danielle Cage, but we know Danielle is a force to be reckoned with, and as such, she's a Captain America who deserves to be on this list. Number 5. Mutant X. The Captain America of Earth 1298, first appearing in Mutant X number 15 in 1999, was a mutant with no name who took on the role after Steve Rogers was brought to an end by a Sentinel attack. His past was unknown except for the fact that he was experimented on by the government due to having latent mutagency. This captain wasn't exactly stable. He lacked control over his mutant powers, which resulted in him accidentally ending the lives of both the Six and most, if not all, of the Avengers. What were his powers though? This Cap was still given the Super Soldier Serum, which I'm assuming gave him all of the same powers as Steve Rogers, but his mutant abilities included the ability to increase his mass and strength, telepathy, force field generation, crazy energy-based powers, and near invulnerability. His abilities activating caused enough of a galactical upset that it woke the Beyonder, who was sleeping inside the planet's core. So yeah, he went rampaging and was a total psychological mess, but that doesn't change the fact that he was absolutely very powerful. Number 4. 2099 Captain America. First appearing in 2099 Manifest Destiny, this Captain America was frozen again after a war happened that ended the heroic age in his timeline. He was brought to Alchemax, and after being thawed out, he told Miguel O'Hara all about it. Now this Captain America was eventually given Thor's hammer Mjolnir to symbolize the beginning of a new world. That's right, it's an official Thor cap. Alongside Miguel O'Hara, Captain America assembled the various 29 heroes into a new team of Avengers and led them into a battle in space against the President Doom of 2099. Yes, he does look like a very 90s amalgamation of the two characters, but his power was nothing to scoff at. Neither was the inspiration he fired up in people's hearts. Definitely a fantastically powerful alternate future version of Captain America. Number 3. Another 2099 Cap. But wait, there's more! In Marvel 2099, Captain America was a female named Roberta Mendez, or this version of Captain America was. Roberta was a bit different from most other captains on this list. Instead of joining a government-sponsored research program, Roberta was forcefully given the Super Soldier Serum by her husband, Harry. She gained all the powers afforded to a super soldier, and she did indeed become a new Captain America, although she was under the control of the Alchemax Corporation, which is a massive science-based company in this future world. It kinda gets worse for Roberta, as she is actually completely unaware of her separate Captain America persona thanks to brainwashing. Luckily, she did actually eventually rebel against Alchemax and then legitimately became Captain America, taking on the ideals that made her predecessor, or predecessors, I guess, so much better. Number 2. Earth X. Captain America, in the not too distant alternate future of Earth X, was a bit more tragic. In this world, everyone was exposed to Terrigen mists, giving everyone powers and sort of denying the need for superheroes as much. On top of that, this Cap felt unworthy, as he had actually separated the Red Skull from his head using his shield in an act of vengeance, causing him to step down from the Avengers out of shame. There's reason to believe this likely led to all the Avengers except Vision being defeated by Absorbing Man. So this Cap was a faded version of what he could have been, but he still had all the same powers and abilities and still fought against what was wrong and stood for what was right. He helped defeat an evil telepathic kid called the Skull and helped Mar-Vell create a paradise for deceased heroes. Although he did pass away, this Cap turned into one of Mar-Vell's avenging hosts, which were basically angels in the realm of the dead. He became an avenging angel, which is like a title I kind of hope to possess one day, but I probably won't. But his wings enabled him to fly. He could change his shape, but usually just look like his usual self. He was able to travel between the dimensions of the land of the dead to paradise, and from paradise to the antimatter sun of the negative zone. On top of that, Cap could also awaken the latent memories of those in the realm of the dead with a single touch. He also wielded this extremely cool sword, but we don't really know what its capabilities are. So he is a much different Captain America with an extremely unique set of powers and abilities, but he's also one of the coolest. Number 1. James Newman. In 2007's Marvel Knights Captain America: The Chosen, Steve Rogers' super soldier serum wore out after all the powerful and intense wars and battles he had been involved in over his unnaturally long life. He returned to his true self and became immortal again, growing old. Now, Rogers volunteered to use an experimental machine that would let him project his image remotely onto battlefields around the world as an inspirational figure to give soldiers hope and courage. And it did just that for the central hero of this comic, James Newman. He was inspired to do incredibly heroic and courageous stuff, even if he felt like he was kind of losing himself. After Steve Rogers' actual death, Steve's spirit possessed James during an incredibly intense firefight and fought in battles for as long as his country needed him, saying that his spirit was inside anyone who needed him. This one's a bit more idealistic, but it does perfectly represent Captain America and his ideals.
At number 10, we have Wonder Woman from the Kingdom Come storyline. In Kingdom Come, Diana has the same origin as the Wonder Woman we know, also serving in the Justice League alongside Superman and Batman. But in the future, Batman has retired and the world has become darker and unforgiving. Diana herself even loses sight of her moral values and becomes less ethical in her heroic practices. Due to this shift in her practice, she is then exiled from Paradise Island and forced to reform on her own. And as the story progresses, she is the one who regularly visits Superman in his Fortress of Solitude and convinces him to return to heroism to help the crisis in Kansas. If you don't know this storyline, the crisis that I refer to is the culmination of a relentless new generation of heroes getting into a dangerous conflict with the governments of the world. With Wonder Woman's approach to justice still coming off as a bit harsh, Superman is hesitant to work with her at first, but eventually they do much more than work together. They actually get married and have 5 kids. At number 9, we have Lois Lane from Superman/Wonder Woman, Whom Gods Destroy. In this Elseworlds tale, we see a world occupied by depicting what would happen if the Third Reich was never defeated during World War II. And the Nazi ideology even poisons the ranks of the superhero community, turning the original Diana, aka Wonder Woman, into a herself. But during a battle between the Greek pantheon and the Athena is sacrificed, which somehow endows an aging Lois Lane with powers, leading her to take on the mantle of Wonder Woman herself. While this is going on, Superman gets turned into a Minotaur, and regular Superman gets turned into a woman. Once again, I don't understand why or how this happens, but she then infiltrates the Great Hall of the Reich, while this new Lois Lane Wonder Woman takes down the brainwashed Wonder Woman and ties her up with her magic lasso. It's a strange story, but hey, a future version of Wonder Woman that's actually a superpowered Lois Lane fighting. That's pretty badass. At number 8, we have Diana from Immortal Wonder Woman as part of Future State. In the future, Diana hasn't aged due to her Amazonian physiology, and we witness her recounting the experiences of visiting an apparition of a long-dead Batman as well as an aged Superman. After watching Superman disappear into the sun during a battle with Darkseid, the sun explodes in front of her and she has to make a decision whether or not to give up and die there and then. But instead of giving in, she brings life to a new future and a new hope for future generations of superheroes. We're then teased with a short sequence showing what a future version of Wonder Woman could be, as Nubia seems to take on the mantle at the end of the 2-part series, but more on her later. At number 7 is the Wonder Woman from DC 1 Million. This is definitely the most futuristic version of the hero on this list, living in the 853rd century. She is a member of the Justice Legion Alpha and is actually made of marble, possessing enhanced intellect and even telepathy. First appearing in DC 1 Million number 1, this Wonder Woman is teleported to an unknown planet by a being named Telos, where she and a number of other heroes are faced with opposition in the form of Luther bots, which take out many of the heroes, but she survives and is finally teleported once more to face off against the crime syndicate, where she is defeated by Superwoman. This is a pretty far-fetched and bizarre storyline, but hey, it's over 80,000 years in the future, so what else would we expect? At number 6, we have Wonder Woman, aka God of War, from Wonder Woman Future's End. This version of the hero is one of the most relentless but also tragic versions on the list. In the New 52, Future's End, we witness events taking place 35 years into the future when there is a massive takeover by an AI known as Brother Eye. The corpses of fallen superheroes are taken over by nanotechnology, including that of Wonder Woman, creating these spider-like mechanical monstrosities. And the Wonder Woman one might even qualify as a future version of Wonder Woman itself, although it is kinda just a lifeless robot parasite thing. Either way, to try and prevent this horrible future from taking place, Terry McGinnis, aka Batman Beyond, has to go back in time and change the course of history. But in the new reality he creates is where, or rather when, we see this future version of Wonder Woman taking on the mantle of God of War. During a one-shot called Wonder Woman Future's End, Nemesis feels threatened by Diana and entraps her in a state of illusion of perpetual war, where she stays for some time. But when Superman drags her out of this illusion, she realizes that she'd prefer to use her powers for peace, and therefore becomes known as Peace instead of War. And this all comes before she's eventually, unfortunately, killed in battle with Brother Eye. At number 5, we have Nubia from Future State. First appearing a long time ago in 1973's Wonder Woman number 204, Nubia is introduced as the twin sister to Diana, who also happens to qualify for the title of Wonder Woman. But years later, during Future State Immortal Wonder Woman, Nubia returns in full Wonder Woman attire, as though she's been doing it for years. A new announcement in Infinite Frontier number 0 shows readers what DC has in mind for Wonder Woman's future, seemingly introducing Nubia as one of the 2 new heroes to don the Wonder Woman mantle. What's more is Nubia also gets her own graphic novel back in February of 2021, which explores her upbringing set in a modern human world. At number 4, we have the Diana from Wonder Woman Evolution. This is the most recent future version of Wonder Woman on this list, currently being published in 2022. This futuristic storyline tells the story of Wonder Woman being taken away from Earth by a distant cosmic entity and forced to face off in challenges to prove the worthiness of Earth and its inhabitants, and the stakes to allow Earth to continue existing in the universe. There isn't much to be said about this version of the hero because she's just kinda getting started, but we can confirm that she is kicking ass and taking no prisoners as she continues to fight as Earth's delegate. And whatever this situation ends up building up to will be determined as the year goes on. So keep up with Wonder Woman Evolution. Get a copy now, there's only 8 issues out so far. At number 3, we have Wonder Woman from Wonder Woman Dead Earth. This version of the hero is faced with a dismal future after waking up from a centuries-long sleep. She wakes to the world in an apocalyptic state inhabited by mutated beings known as the Hydra. But considering how far into the future it is, Diana's JLA partners are all long gone and she's forced to face this brutal future wasteland on her own. The story is only told in 4 issues, but it takes on a grittier approach to the character of Wonder Woman, depicting her as much less dignified and put together than usual. But she manages to pull together her inner strength, and with the help of a deceased Batman's utility belt, she goes on into the wasteland to face off against massive beasts, partake in a gladiatorial arena, and eventually come into contact with a withered, robotic Superman, who actually helps in giving Diana a final boost of power to defeat a massive Hydra beast. It's one of the more unique depictions of the character on the list, and just in general, with some great artwork too. Go take a look if you haven't already. At number 2, we have Cassandra Sandsmark from the Titans of Tomorrow. Known more commonly as Wonder Girl, Cassandra does indeed have a run as Wonder Woman in the future. First seen in Teen Titans Volume 3, Issue 17, the Titans of Tomorrow come about after a present-day version of the Teen Titans from New Earth travel 10 years into the future and see a grim reality. The USA has been split into East and West, and their future selves have adopted a more relentless approach to justice. And during what's known as a Great Crisis, most of Earth's main heroes have died, leaving jobs open for these future Titans. Even though this is a more brutal version of Wonder Woman, it is interesting to see Cassandra take on the mantle, and it seems like there are no 2 ways about it. No matter what the modern Teen Titans try to do to change the timeline so that they don't turn out as more brutal versions of themselves, it doesn't work. Finally, at number 1 we have Yara Flor. Yara is from the tribe of the Amazons and actually comes from the heart of the Amazon rainforest in Brazil. She is first introduced as the new Wonder Woman back in 2020 as part of Future State, which shows us a new lineup of DC heroes moving forward into the future. This character has also been established as Wonder Girl in Infinite Frontier number 0, but with all the heroes that DC is planning on rebooting for this new wave, we still haven't gotten a full-fledged backstory for Yara quite yet. The best we have so far is a 2-part series called Future State Wonder Woman, but we're looking forward to it because Yara is a true departure for the character. DC seems to be bringing human culture into the origins of Wonder Woman for a new generation of readers, which I think will be cool to watch unfold. Also, she's just a cool new hero that many people online have been showing quite a lot of excitement about, including myself. There's not a ton to be said about Yara as Wonder Woman, but you can catch up with her adventures in the 2-part series released in January 2021.
Number 10. Ultimate Deadpool. While the Ultimate timeline is said to be parallel to the 616 main continuity timeline, technically the Ultimate continuity of Earth 1610 is still set in the future by comparison. The Ultimate line was actually meant to shake things up, chiefly by giving stories a more updated and modern setting. That was one of the major ways it differed, as its continuity didn't extend back to the 1960s and further back beyond that. Add in the fact that the Ultimate version of Deadpool is later revealed to be a cyborg, having fully converted to match their fellow Reaver brethren, and you have a pretty futuristic version of Deadpool here. Basically, evil robot Deadpool in this universe. Number 9. Horsemen of Apocalypse. In this alternate reality of Earth 16558, Deadpool was chosen to become a Horseman of Apocalypse. Here, Deadpool was ordered to join the rest of the Horsemen in defeating and destroying the young X-Men who were trespassers in their home of Omega World, and retrieving the Ark that they carried with them, which held within it hundreds of mutant embryos. In this reality, many of Apocalypse's choices for his Horsemen are actually not really mutant in origin. Also on this deadly team is Venom and Moon Knight. Later, Colossus, who attempts to buy time for the young X-Men, is also recruited into their ranks, being the only technical mutant other than Apocalypse on the team. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more Deadpool lists or more future alternate versions lists, be sure to let us know by clicking that like and commenting below. Also, if you haven't already, go follow us on Facebook. We got some cool stuff for you over there. Number 8. Deadman Wade. Deadman Wade appears in the Age of Apocalypse alternate future reality. Here, Apocalypse succeeds in taking over the world, and Deadpool is recruited into becoming one of his Pale Riders. In this reality, Deadpool is not much of a jokester, but instead is extremely sad and quite depressed. As a Pale Rider, he is constantly mistreated by Danny Moonstar, his teammate, who is also part of the Pale Riders in this reality. Deadpool in this reality is rapidly decaying, which causes him to feel immense pain, almost all the time. In the end, he is killed by Nightcrawler, who teleports his head away from his body to do so. Deadman Wade, however, would later be resurrected and would go on to join the evil Deadpool Corps, appearing alongside them in the series Deadpool Kills Deadpool. Number 7. Agent Deadpool. This Deadpool is never really given a name like most alternates who appear as a member of the evil Deadpool Corps. However, he does seem to have some pretty fancy tech and the ability to body slide, and I would assume potentially time slide. He appears in Deadpool Kills Deadpool, a series by Cullen Bunn where Dreadpool seeks to create his own team of evil Deadpools so that he might use them to wipe out every Deadpool in the Marvel multiverse. Dreadpool, by the way, is the same version of Deadpool known for killing the entire Marvel universe. Agent Deadpool, as I've chosen to call him, is one of Dreadpool's agents who appears in the first issue of Deadpool Kills Deadpool. He takes out Headpool, Golden Age Deadpool, and sadly, Dogpool, before Deadpool of the main reality of Earth 616 avenges their deaths by killing Agent Deadpool in turn, using Agent Deadpool's own anti-regeneration or anti-Deadpool ray. Number 6. Eternity Deadpool. This Deadpool only makes a brief appearance in Doom War issue number 5. Here, Deadpool is recruited into a mission to help retrieve the 10,000 tons of vibranium that Dr. Doom stole from Wakanda. When Deadpool passed through the Nowhere Room, he's turned temporarily into kind of a splat of goo and organs. I say temporarily because, well, he's Deadpool. Deadpool, so he does get better because he got that healing factor. And quite quickly too, I will say. During this time, however, we also get a glimpse into multiple alternate versions of Deadpool from the multiverse, one of which happens to be a version in which Deadpool goes on to become the new Eternity. Number 5. Old Head Deadpool. This alternate version of Deadpool comes from the Wastelanders or Old Man Logan reality of Earth 807128. Here, Deadpool appears to have survived the uprising of supervillains, destruction of the Earth, and post-apocalyptic setting of this continuity. At least, his head did. We see him as a head in a jar in Wastelander's Hawkeye, where he is kept in a bar that Juggernaut frequents, and is potentially the boss of? Although he no longer has a body, this merc still has kept his mouth, and still uses it to crack wise at almost any opportunity that presents itself. Number 4. Deadpool 2099. Deadpool 2099 is Warda Wilson, the daughter of Shikla and Deadpool. While in 2099, Deadpool also exists, although it is actually Warda who holds her father hostage, along with Emily Preston, the adoptive mother of Eleanor Preston, who is also Deadpool's daughter. Warda kidnaps them both in hopes of finding out what happened to her mother, Shikla, who basically went missing. While she is the daughter of Deadpool, Wade never really knew about her until then because Shikla and Deadpool split up before she was born, and Shikla basically decided to keep Warda's existence a secret from Wade. Like her dad, this future legacy version of Deadpool, Warda Wilson, also has a healing factor. Number 3. Legacy Deadpool. Deadpool has more than one daughter actually. He also has Ellie Camacho, also known in this future as Eleanor Preston. She is the adopted daughter of Deadpool and Emily Preston in the future of Earth 16356, the same reality that Warda is also existing in. Here, Ellie ends up manifesting immortality powers, with her basically regenerating upon her death, being reborn with all of her prior memories, but basically reset to look as she did when her powers first manifested. In other words, she becomes a teenager physically again, and then grows from there whenever she dies. Ellie has always been one of my favorites when it comes to heroes kids out there, and although I loved Shikla and Deadpool together, I have always preferred Ellie to their daughter, Warda. Ellie takes up her father's mantle and is known by the codename Deadpool in this reality. Deadpool Ellie goes on to fight against her half-sister, Deadpool Warda, in the future, who is also of course known as Deadpool 2099, one of them. Number 2. Future X-Men. During Battle of the Atom, a future Deadpool appears as part of the Future X-Men team. He is there in an attempt to send the all-new X-Men, or past X-Men, back to their time, convincing them to return, where they belong. This alternate version of Wade also seems to be a fan of Gold Balls. He claims in the future that Gold Ball's apparently a legend and asks for his autograph, though I don't know if he's joking. In reality, the X-Men team that he is a part of is not really a future X-Men team, but is instead a future Brotherhood of Evil Mutants team, ha ha ha, led by the evil son of Professor X and Mystique, Charles Xavier II, and the evil son of Wolverine and Mystique, Reyes. Number 1. Days of Future Past. Deadpool managed to retcon an old future version of himself into Days of Future Past, and appears in Cosmic Ghost Rider's story where he himself is doing some meddling in the future timeline, which for him is currently the past. Does that make sense? Or have I lost you yet? I feel like time travel, we lose everyone at some point. Still, Cosmic Ghost Rider decides to call it the future to simplify, so I think it's fair that we do so too. Here, Deadpool appears to have somehow become the leader of the X-Men. His original plan was to send Kitty Pryde back in time, but when Cosmic Ghost Rider steals the valuable jammer component she was meant to transport to help prevent the bleak dystopian future, Deadpool decides to send Cosmic Ghost Rider back in time instead. This all goes down in the series Cosmic Ghost Rider destroys Marvel history in issue number 3. What is your favorite future alternate version of Deadpool? Do you like when Deadpool gets all timey-wimey with his alternates, or do you just prefer when they are just from alternate worlds and have just distinct differences, like Lady Deadpool, or Evil Deadpool, or Panda Deadpool, Pandapool? Number 10. What If Sorcerer Supreme? In the What If series, we got an issue that explored the idea of what would happen if Tony Stark became Sorcerer Supreme in place of Stephen Strange, and was forced to do battle with the Dread Lord of the Dark Dimension, Dormammu. Oddly enough, this isn't the only alternate future where Tony ends up as Sorcerer Supreme. Maybe we'll talk about that later. It's actually just one of them. Here, both Stark and Strange are in a car accident together, which robs Stephen of his ability to use his hands as a surgeon. Tony swears to fix Stephen's hands, and the two set out on a quest, which sets Stark down a path to meeting and training with the Ancient One, instead of Stephen doing that. After becoming the Ancient One's disciple and defeating the evil Baron Mordo, Stark becomes the new Sorcerer Supreme, and is forced to do battle with Dormammu, who plans on, of course, invading Earth. Stark makes for himself a suit of armor to help him defeat Dormammu, which combines both Tony's knowledge of technology and the mystic arts. Number 9. Iron Man 2020. Iron Man 2020 is both an event and a character. The editorial name was given to a different Iron Man, Arno Stark. Arno Stark, aka Iron Man 2020, was Tony's secret brother and the natural-born heir of the Stark family. Whereas it was later revealed that Tony was actually adopted to kind of help cover up what had really happened with Arno and to basically protect the firstborn Stark. Arno would end up taking up the mantle of Iron Man in the future year of 2020. Although now that would actually be the past because it's 2022 at the time of this recording, and at the time of the event it was the present because it was 2020. The original Iron Man 2020 comic was actually published in the 90s, so at the time 2020 was very much in the future. So for those of you trying to tell me 2020 is the past, I know, but at the time, it's the future. In the event Iron Man 2020, Arno takes up his brother's mantle as he fights against the uprising of machines. Tony at the time felt he was more machine than man, and Arno basically uses this revelation of Tony's to discredit him, taking his place and becoming Iron Man in his stead. In the end, Arno would basically be driven mad while trying to save humans from machines by attempting to take control of all life, both organic and AI, in order to protect them. Don't worry though, because Tony would defeat Arno and kind of put him in a dream state to make him hopefully be happy until he wakes up and realizes all of the things he thinks he's been living have been a lie, which will probably not be good. I don't think that's happened yet though. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you are enjoying our content here, why not head on over to Facebook and follow us there. We have lots of bonus content coming your way, giveaways and other good stuff, so go on over there and click that follow button. Number 8. Darkhold Iron Man. The Darkhold Iron Man tale gives us a glimpse into a dark alternate future for our hero. In this reality, when Tony Stark first makes the Iron Man suit, something in his programming basically goes wrong. This causes the suit to remove Tony's skin when it is put on and then removed. Tony learns this the hard way. While working on the suit to try and fix this issue, he feels a compulsion to put it on as though the suit is calling to him. And seemingly, without thinking, he finds himself doing so, eventually even putting on the helmet. The Iron Man suit works to remove Tony's skin and then eventually breaks down his skull and his bones, merging with him fully so that the suit can never actually be removed without killing Tony, because now they're kind of one being. But why would he ever want to remove this suit? Driven insane, in the end Tony Stark believes that the Iron Man suit is actually the way of the future and offers one to every human, turning the population into a bunch of techno-organic iron suit human hybrid monster things permanently, including his friends and his loved ones who he also forces into suits. Ugh. Which would be really terrible because they know what's gonna happen. At least those people are unsuspecting and they're just like, free iron suit, that sounds lovely. Let me run into this and see what happens. Better or worse, if you see it coming or if you're surprised by it. I don't know. I feel like if you see it coming, it's worse in my mind. Number 7. Earth 928 Iron Man. Earth 928 is widely accepted as the main continuity for Earth 2099. This is the same one that Miguel O'Hara, the main Miguel anyways, aka Spider-Man 2099, hails from. The sad reality is that in this continuity, there isn't really a future Iron Man to speak of. What we do learn about Tony Stark's future here is that the Doom of 2099 has dealt with Stark technology before, and that there is basically no alternate Iron Man within scanning distance of Flipside. Flipside appears in Spider-Man 2099, issue number 29, from the 90s, and appears to be scanning for copies of heroes of old so that it can basically copy their traits and abilities, adopting them to become a copy of them itself. Instead of running into any Earth 928 Iron Man though, Flipside ends up running into Miguel and becomes a copycat of Spider-Man 2099 instead. So like I said, as far as we know, there is no Iron Man 2099 in the main 2099 reality. There was a future for Tony, but we don't really know about it. We just know that he was there until he wasn't. Number 6. Stark Fujikawa. While Iron Man of Earth 928 appears to be dead, there is also the existence in this future of the Stark Fujikawa organization, one of the main corporations that rules over the future Earth, along with such powerful companies as Alchemex. While Tony Stark is not among the powerful heads of the company and is not the future CEO, presumed to be dead on Earth 928, in the alternate 2099 future reality of Earth 96099, Iron Man's likeness, at least, does live on. In this reality, Iron Man's likeness is used in advertising for the Stark Fujikawa organization, implying that Tony's future was somewhat tied to the company. At least, like I said, in this alternate 2099 reality, which isn't the main 2099 reality, but yeah, there are lots of alternate 2099 timelines. It's confusing. Although once again, we still don't really know the fate of Tony Stark even here, where his name and likeness still seem to reappear, but the rest is a mystery. Number 5. Iron Man 2099. There are actually multiple Iron Man 2099s out there, but one of the most well-known ones is Dr. Sonny Frisco, who first appeared in the 2015 Secret Wars event, making his very first appearance in Secret Wars 2099 issue number 1. While 2099 is a future reality that has been around for some time in the comics, Dr. Sonny Frisco wouldn't appear until later in its continuity. Or a continuity, really. This also, once again, is not the main 2099 continuity. In fact, the 2099 reality actually has multiple different continuities. As I said, it's a lot, it's confusing, but just stick with me here. Frisco's Iron Man hails from one of the fringe continuities known as Earth 23291. Sonny Frisco, however, would later become displaced to the reality verse 616, following the destruction and recreation of the multiverse as a result of the Secret Wars event. Like Tony Stark of Earth 616, Frisco is also a genius who built his own suit of armor and was a member of the 2099 Avengers, originally brought together by the CEO of Alchemex, Tyler Stone. At least, you know, in that alt 2099 reality. Number 4. MC2 Tony Stark. In the alternate reality of Earth 982, known as MC2, and not to be confused with the 2099 reality of Earth 928, even though those numbers are very similar, Iron Man ends up retiring. This Tony has a life similar to his 616 counterpart in most ways, with only a few differences between them. Namely, that Tony Stark in this reality decided to retire after an epic battle on an alternate Earth, which claimed the lives of many of his friends and fellow heroes, and left Scarlet Witch in a comatose state as a result of her sealing the portal between those two worlds. This devastating battle prompted Tony to retire, although he would seek out someone to carry on his legacy before doing so. Number 3. Mainframe. This is that legacy character for Tony Stark of the other main future reality for Earth 616, known as MC2, Earth 982. Here in this reality, Tony Stark creates his own protege to carry on the Iron Man legacy, using his brain patterns or brain waves blended with an android modeled after his own armor. This android would be known as Mainframe. Mainframe was one of the original members of the MC2 Future Avengers team, editorially known as A-Next, after the name of the comic series that the team appeared in. Mainframe initially was much more by the book as a hero, pretty rigid in their ways. Over time, however, the android would learn to loosen up somewhat and even be considered a close friend to many of his heroic colleagues on the superhero team. Number 2. Andros Stark. Andros Stark is another Iron Man who hails from the 2099 reality. Not the main 2099 reality though. So many alternate timelines. This version of the alternate future Iron Man is actually Tony's grandson, Andros. Andros travels back in time in an attempt to stop his grandfather from creating Vortex. Vortex was initially created by Tony to protect humanity, but ended up turning on humankind instead, infecting the internet and threatening the existence of all human life on Earth in the future. However, in a strange twist, Andros actually ends up learning during his journey back to the past that it was his jaunt back in time that would actually result in the creation of the Vortex virus. The future crisis ends up being averted thanks to this revelation, but unfortunately it also causes Andros to cease to exist. At least this specific version of Andros who traveled back in time. There could very well still be an Andros out there somewhere in the world, one who, you know, didn't have a reason to travel back thanks to the future being saved. This future version of Iron Man 2099 does not appear in the comics, but instead is from the animated series Iron Man Armored Adventures. Number 1. Dr. Anthony Stark. Coming full circle now, from 10 to 1. As I said, what if Sorcerer Supreme Tony Stark is not the only one out there? There's also the 2099 AD alternate future Tony Stark, who also ends up as Sorcerer Supreme, known as such or sometimes as Dr. Stranger or Dr. Anthony Stark. Although once again, although this is 2099 AD, this is not the main 2099 reality. This is another splintered continuity. This future version of Tony shows up in Infamous Iron Man when Dr. Doom, as the aforementioned infamous Iron Man, appears into the future. However, this future version of Tony would also appear initially in the 2014 all-new X-Men annual, where Tempest would run into him when she attempted to return to the reality where her husband and daughter existed. However, Stark would inform her that this reality no longer existed, and he would actually urge Tempest to return to her original timeline, the continuity of Earth 616.
Number 10. Hulk 2099. This is the only Hulk on this list that is not a Bruce Banner. No, this version of the Hulk is a guy named John Eisenhart. He was a corporate lawyer for big movie studios who went to manipulate a group called the Knights of Banner, who were a cult-like group of warriors who followed the ideologies of Bruce Banner. John was going to gain the rights for their name in order to make a movie about them, all while giving them nothing in return. He turns them into this corporation called Sweet Dreams, thinking they'll be brought in peacefully, but it doesn't go that way. The only Knight of Banner who survives, a kid, goes to a gamma machine, but John saves the kid, pushing him out of the way and being blasted with gamma radiation. John can turn into the Hulk whenever he wants. He has a super strong prehensile tongue, and he is much more beast-like with massive claws. He is just as powerful as the regular Hulk, but unfortunately, his comics were not popular enough to last more than 12 issues. Maybe he'll get a resurgence, I don't know. And at number 9, it's Age of Apocalypse Hulk, a world where the megalomaniacal Apocalypse rose to power and mutants rule mercilessly while humans are treated like cattle. This version of Bruce Banner originally betrayed mankind, but after his experiments turned him into the Hulk, he fought for humans once again. This version of the Hulk starts off as the Grey Hulk, but is referred to as Thing until he saves Tony Stark, Gwen Stacy, and Victor Von Doom from a gamma nuke that he created that inadvertently goes off, forcing his transformation from Grey to Green Hulk. Now this guy is pretty much an equal to his normal 616 self, but once Weapon X becomes the ruler of this Earth, this Hulk is able to go toe to toe with him, shrugging off attacks and giving a hell of a fight for the crazy powerful mutant. And at number 8, Zombie Hulk. Marvel Zombies isn't really a future story. Like, it sort of becomes one, but it isn't when it starts. Time is relative, so look. Basically, in the story, eventually the zombie Galacti, as in those zombified heroes who consumed the Silver Surfer and Galactus and gained the power cosmic, travel out into the universe and begin consuming worlds and galaxies. So much so that they consume everything until nothing is left. As you can imagine, that's the kind of thing that may take a while. Long enough to be considered the future? I shall allow you to debate below. This Hulk was a lead consumer in the team of cosmically powered zombie superheroes and villains. So much so that when they ran out of people to consume, Zombie Thanos blamed Hulk for eating more than his fair share, to which Zombie Hulk decided he had enough of Thanos and put him out of commission. Number 7, Lizard Hulk. In the alternate future of the Spider Island story, the whole of New York City has been taken over by a villain known as the Spider Queen. The Spider Queen has infected almost all inhabitants of the city, including all of the heroes, with a virus that turns them into mindless spider zombie-like slaves under her control. Luckily, there's a group of heroes who make a resistance to this villainous Spider Queen. Most notable among them would be Eugene Flash Thompson, or Agent Venom. Agent Venom eventually realizes that if he subjects some of these spider hybrid heroes to a different DNA tampering process, like for example the Lizard Serum or even the Green Goblin Serum, that it will override the spider transformation, effectively curing the patients. When a group of spider heroes, including the Spider Hulk, attack Agent Venom, he injects the Spider Hulk with the Lizard Serum, effectively turning him into a more giant and muscular Lizard Hulk. He got a tail, he got sharp teeth, he got scales, he a Lizard Hulk, baby! Number 6, Intelligent Design God Hulk from What If Planet Hulk. Most comic book readers, and especially fans of Marvel and the Hulk, know of the storyline where the Illuminati banished the Hulk from Earth to send him to another planet. He ended up crash landing on Sakaar and becoming a gladiator turned liberator turned ruler of the planet until his ship self-destructed, killing his family and bringing him back to Earth with a vengeance that no guilty person was safe from. What if Planet Hulk ends up asking the question, what if the Illuminati's banishment had hit its original target? In this story, Hulk lands on an incredibly peaceful and serene planet. And sure, he goes a bit ragey at first, but he eventually realizes the planet is inhabited by a race of peaceful creatures. Over long periods of time, the Hulk helps this race to evolve and become a thriving civilization. They end up viewing the Hulk as their god, and he basically acts as one that leads them to wealth and prosperity. It's one of the few Hulk stories that doesn't end in tears, and I'm more than happy to talk about it for that reason alone. Number 5, Happy Banner. And from happiness back to tears again. Ready to talk about Old Man Logan? Yet again? Good. Basically, in this dystopian future where the villains all banded together to take out all of the heroes, Wolverine has become a farmer, a simple man trying to just make ends meet and keep his family alive. But the main antagonist in this tale is the Hulk gang, made up of the incestuous children and grandchildren of Bruce Banner, the Incredible Hulk, and what he claims was his cousin Jennifer Walters, as in She-Hulk. This gang of horrible Hulks was led by none other than the one true Pappy Banner himself. Pappy Banner doesn't need to change his form to access the powers of the Hulk. In the fight between Old Man Logan and Pappy Banner, this regular human Bruce Banner was tossing cows and throwing punches that sent Logan flying. But when he did transform, he grew to a massive, overweight, maniacally twisted version of the Hulk that ate Old Man Logan whole. Well, until Logan healed up and burst out of the Hulk's stomach, so that's nice. Number 4, Hulk The End. The End series chronicles the last days of various characters in the Marvel Universe. For a lot of doomsday type stories, it often ends in the Earth being destroyed in a nuclear war. But what remains after that? Well, basically, the Hulk remains. As the only human left on planet Earth, Bruce Banner wanders the wastes in an eternal struggle with himself, as in an eternal struggle with the Hulk. Basically, Bruce has seen the deaths of all those he loved, all those he cared about. There's nothing left in this world for him, and he would prefer to just pass on. But no matter what he does, the Hulk does not let him. Speaking of the big green Goliath, he thinks Banner's will to pass away is a puny human thought, and he wants to be the strongest there is and to just be left alone. The two of them have a huge internal falling out. Eventually, Bruce has a heart attack, and while Hulk himself goes on to survive somehow, he now realizes just how alone he really is. Damn. Number 3, Breaker of Worlds. The Breaker of Worlds Hulk first appeared in a kind of side story within the Immortal Hulk storyline. In an alternate timeline, the Immortal Hulk becomes possessed by the One Below All, who went rampaging until the end of time, and the end of this iteration of the multiverse. He has destroyed everything, literally everything. He has defeated Franklin Richards, Galactus, all the cosmic entities, and he shattered planets and crushed stars with his bare hands. The story itself follows an alien that had explored out trying to find out if anything was left in the universe, and there wasn't. This alien is living in the 9th cosmos, meaning the 9th version of the multiverse after the Immortal Hulk / the One Below All destroyed the last version. This new 9th multiverse is in tatters though. The One Below All Hulk has consumed the souls of every being he has destroyed, bolstering his own power enough so that he is planet-sized and just flies around like a living curse, ending all things in existence until there is nothing left. Ever. Luckily, the alien sent a warning far into the past to the present time. The Breaker of Worlds is what happens when the One Below All wins, and it's not good. Coming in at number 2 is Space Punisher Hulk. This version of the Hulk in the really awesome Space Punisher story is a 4-armed, 30-foot tall murderous monstrosity. He completely took out the Fantastic Four, he bit Sabretooth in half, took off Deadpool's head and threw him out into space, and he completely decimated a group of 6 Watchers, as in the race that Uatu the Watcher is a part of. Now if you don't know, the Watchers are sort of on par in power to Galactus, so yes, this is pretty impressive. The future space version of the Hulk is more like an exoskeleton with Bruce Banner contained within the Hulk's chest, but they are still separate entities, allowing Punisher to end the life of Bruce Banner, which in turn allows the Hulk to just jump off into space and leave everyone alone. It's intense, it's really weird, it's extremely brutal as you'd expect from a Punisher story, and we love it. And coming in at number 1 is Maestro. If we are talking about alternate future versions of the Hulk, you'd be just a big ol' silly Billy if you thought we weren't gonna talk about the evil ruler of dystopia, the possible future version of the Hulk, Maestro. Maestro is the far future ruler of a megacity that rose up after the events of a nuclear war. After being exposed to so much extra radiation, he gained extra strength and over time became more and more intelligent. He had powered up enough to be double the strength of the base Hulk and just as smart as Bruce Banner, while also becoming nefariously evil. Earth 616 Hulk ends up traveling forward in time to stop Maestro, which proves to be a much more difficult task than he initially imagined. Hulk's experience with Maestro gave Hulk nightmares of what he could become for years and years and years to come into the future.